Hello everyone, Alexander Flores here, and in this quick video I'm going to show you how to create a Lambda function and then attach that to an API gateway input. So to start, we are here on AWS Lambda, we're on the dashboard and we want to click on functions. We then want to go over to create a function. Now we're going to create our Lambda function and there's a few things we have to fill in. The first thing is the name. I'm going to call this tutorial. The runtime is the version and I'm going to select 8.10. And then the role, we can choose an existing role, but if you don't have one, then we can go ahead and create a new role, create a custom role right here. Okay, so now we have this right here. And this is going to be a very basic role that just allows us to access the logs. So that we have this, click on allow at the bottom right. And then we have this right here. So we can go ahead and create the function. Okay, so our function has been created successfully. We have a few different options for the ability to actually write the code. So we can write it inline right here. We can upload a zip file, or we can upload it from an S3 bucket. In this example, I'm going to edit it inline. Note that if you're uploading from a zip file, you do not want to compress the folder itself. You want to compress the contents of the folder. So right in here, I'm going to simply return event.number times 2. So this is going to be a simple function that just multiplies whatever we pass in, whatever the number property is, times 2. I'm going to go ahead and save this. And before we actually connect this to API Gateway, we may want to test it. So we can configure our test events right here. I'll just call this test. And then we can have the property called number, have the value of 10. We can create this test event. And then we can click on test with this test event that we just created selected. So if we click on that, it's going to execute the function and we see the result is 20. Then also right here, the log outputs, we can see some brief information about what happened during the logs. Alternatively, we can click right here to view them in CloudWatch. Now we're going to connect this to API Gateway. So I'm in an API that I have for a different series I have on this channel, which is me documenting my journey of creating a software company. However, if you want to create a new API, you can go to APIs right here and then click on Create API. And then fill in the name, and then click on Create API. Now I already have an API, so I'm not going to do this. So under this social dash API, we're going to create a simple resource. We'll call it test. We do want to enable course. We want to create the resource. Now we have this resource right here. So we want to create a method, and let's create a GET request. Alternatively, you could create a different type of request depending on what your goal is. In this example, I'll just simply create a GET request. Then it'll automatically redirect me to the setup for the GET request. So we can pretty much leave all this the same except for the Lambda function. We want to type in the name of our tutorial, and then we want to select the name of the Lambda function. Note that this must match the exact thing that we named our Lambda function. We click on save, and it's going to prompt us to add some extra permissions. Go ahead and click on OK. All right, now we can edit the method execution, and we have 4 options here: the method request, the integration request, then we see on the workflow here we have the Lambda tutorial right here, then we have the integration response and the method response. So we'll start with the method request. Request validator, we are going to select validate query string parameters and headers. Then we're going to click on the check mark right here, and then we want to add some query string parameters right here. So we can add one, and if we go back to our code, we see that we have number. So we're going to name this number, and then we can save it with the check mark right here. Now, if we want, we can make it so this is required, so it'll throw an error if this is not present. So I am going to do that. Then let's go back, and all these things will automatically save once you change them, so there's no extra save button to click. Then let's go to integration request. So previously what we did here with method request is we allowed authorization to make sure that we know exactly what's happening on the URL whenever that's being called. So now that we have access to the information from the URL, in this case a numbers parameter, we're going to actually be able to pass that into Lambda through the integration request. So let's click on integration requests and then click on body mapping templates. And we want to select the middle option when there are no templates defined, which is recommended. And then we want to add a mapping template. Now we have to name this whatever the placeholder is there, which is application/JSON. It's important that you name it exactly that. Then we're going to click on the check mark. We get this text field right here where we can pass in some information. So we're going to go ahead and select empty, and we get this starting point right here. And inside this object, we are going to want to actually pass in the information from our URL parameter, and then also pass in the name of what we want the information to be called on our Lambda function. So on the left, we're going to say number equals $inputs.params with quotes, and then inside those quotes we're going to have, inside the parentheses we're going to have single quotes, and we're going to say number. So on the left here is the variable we're going to be able to access on the event, which is passed into our Lambda function right here. So this event parameter. And then on the right, this is going to be whatever was passed into our actual URL. So whenever we call this, we're going to pass in number as part of the URL, and then that'll be parsed into the event through this line right here. Obviously, if you have additional ones, you can simply just add more of these below it. So we're going to go ahead and save this. Once that's done, we're going to scroll up. We're going to go back, and we're going to go to method response. From here, we're going to add a header to the 200 status. Click on add header right here. So here we want to add access-control-allow-origin. Then we want to click on the check mark right here. And now we want to attach an actual value to this header. So let's go back and let's go to integration response. And we want to attach a string that is going to be just a single star. So it's a wildcard character, which means any. So we have single quotes and then a star in between. Then we're going to click on the check mark here. Then we're going to go back and everything is configured. We now want to click on test. This of course is optional, but it's always good to test. Let's say the number is 5 and we click on test right here. We see the response body shows 10. So that's correct. We can now go to actions, deploy API. You can now select a development stage, or you can create a new stage. In this case, I'll just select my development stage. Then I click on deploy. Then we're redirected to the stages right here. And so we can expand this, and you can find the endpoint you just created. In my case, it's right here. It's the get request under test. And we see this invoke URL. So now you can use this URL in order to call your API, which will then call the Lambda function. So I'm going to copy this, and we're simply just going to have a get request here. We're going to do question mark number equals 10. And we see that the response shows 20. If I were to change this to 500, it now shows 1,000. So this is a very, very basic implementation of using Lambda and API Gateway. So that's pretty much it for this video. Throughout this channel, I'm going to be uploading different tutorials and also me documenting my journey of me creating a software company. So if you're interested in that type of content, then feel free to subscribe and like the video. Thank you for watching.